Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony's off today, so you know what that means.
Same Frank, different outfit. Come on, Mike.
Showing off. Just showing off, huh?
I'm like Beyonce and Taylor Swift, just changing wardrobe nonstop, every segment.
Just don't do that in my office, please. Just,
I always steal some of your ties when I'm in there.
Independent dressing room, if you will.
You have some good stuff.
Welcome to PTI. Tony has the day off, so I'm joined by our great friend, Mr. Frank Isola. That's sort of a Wednesday welcome. That's a good place to start. But we're going to start with the Celtics handing the Cavaliers their first loss of the season as predicted here. Jason Tatum at 33, 12, and 7. And the defending champs jumped ahead by 21, but then had to hold on to beat Cleveland by just 3. Cavaliers forward Evan Mobley said, quote, "I'm happy how we fought back. From what I saw out there, we could beat anybody," close quote. Frank, what does this game and this result tell you about each team?
Yeah, it still tells me that the Celtics are the best team, but Cleveland could be right there, and maybe they'll see each other in a conference final. One thing before everybody goes nuts about the moral victory of coming back from 21 down, in March in Cleveland without Donovan Mitchell, they came back from 22 down and beat the Celtics. So the Cavs have done this before, but I think you can tell that they've closed the gap here. And Darius Garland, the next time they play, is not going to go 3 for 21, and he's not going to have Al Horford, who had only played 1 game in the past week, that rested chasing him around, because with Horford on Darius Garland, Garland was 1 for 5. And I don't know if the Celtics can make 22 or 41 threes anymore in a game. But I think Cleveland, I think what Kenny Atkinson has done offensively, they're very good, and I think a big part of it is going to be health, because remember last year, Mike, Donovan Mitchell didn't play in the last 2 games of the playoff series against Boston, and Jared Allen is always hurt. They need those big guys because Mitchell and Garland on the defensive end are a bit undersized, and Drew Holiday, Derek White could take advantage of them. They need to be healthy. If they are, there's no reason why you can't see Cleveland making a run at least to the conference finals.
Well, Frank, and that's why, to me, what it said about last night was that these are the 2 best teams in the league. Now,
really,
Oklahoma City with Holmgren in there, and he's not going to be maybe as late as the All-Star break, I think they're the best team, or at least the second best team after Boston. So I would rank, if I was doing power ratings, if OKC's healthy with Holmgren out there, I'd have them too, but he's not. So I'm happy to go with Cleveland too, particularly since they won the first 15 games of the season, got off to the second best start that anybody's ever gotten off to.
Yep.
I like you, I look at Boston sometimes in the 3-point shooting barrages, and I wonder, okay, is this going to catch up with them at some point? It did not last season. But if I go back to best 2 teams in the league, Oklahoma City not healthy enough. Minnesota, I got to see more of, even though I think that Minnesota could be right there. Denver's fallen off. They don't want to admit that, but you look at them, and they look like they've fallen off. The Lakers, who we'll discuss later, could really be on to something, but we got to see a lot more from them. So I think we were watching the 2 best teams in the league, and Frank, nobody had the 2 best teams in the league, the 2 best being in the Eastern Conference, even approaching Thanksgiving. Nobody thought that was going to happen.
Yeah, the Eastern Conference is definitely top-heavy. A couple of things from the game. You look at the performance of Tatum, and Tatum already has been great this season. Earlier this week as the game-winning shot against Toronto. Those are the kind of performances where you're kind of building your, MVP resume. And a game like last night is going to stick out. So Tatum's been great, and he and Brown have played in so many big games. So last night, it's like ho-hum for them. I mean, they've been in a ton of finals games, in playoff games. I also thought it being an NBA Cup game, it was interesting. It felt like they were playing at center court at Wimbledon with that green court that they had out there. But keep something in mind about Cleveland, Mike. Noah Coro, Dean Wade, and they didn't have Karis LeVert. So when they get those guys back, they're going to be really tough to beat.
Formidable.
Yep, absolutely. All right, the best individual performance in the NBA last night came from a lesser-known Laker. Dalton Knecht tied an NBA rookie record by draining 9 threes in a win over the Jazz, even offering a Jordan shrug at one point. That's blasphemous, Mike. The number 17 pick in June's draft had 37 in all, leading LeBron to say, quote, "The other 16 teams bleeped it up." The Lakers have suddenly won 6 in a row, Mike. Is it too soon to be bullish on them and this rookie?
No, I don't think it is, Frank, but that comes from somebody who looked at draft night thinking, why are these teams passing up Dalton Connect? Why is he still on the board? And believe me, I'm thinking that about my Chicago Bulls. What are you doing? They have a rookie now who barely gets on the court, and Connect is here with 27 and 37? No, it's not. It's not too early. And listen, the Lakers have been talking about trying to find a third person. They want to trade for it. No. The key to being great in today's NBA is getting lucky in the draft. Fortunate, luck, whatever you want to, however you want to title it, you need to have that where further down, not picking 1, 2, or 3, but picking further down in the draft, even late in the lottery where you find a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I don't even want to go to a second round where you get Joker, a 1,000-time MVP. Getting lucky in the draft. The Lakers seem to have done that. And by the way, I love the Jordan shrug. It's better than this stupid, lame, ice in my veins, that garbage, which is so derivative and lazy, and everybody does it unoriginally. I like this kid. I'm jealous of them that my team didn't draft him. The Lakers are on to something big now.
Yeah, the Lakers' other rookie, Dalton Connect, well, this is why they drafted him. He's 23 years old. So all these other teams, when they're drafting in the first round, they're looking at 19-year-olds because everybody wants to develop. So these guys come in, they're really young. Physically, they still have, they haven't fully matured. Dalton Connect has been around, and it's a win-now team. When you have LeBron and Anthony Davis, if you're drafting somebody and Dalton Connect is available, you bring him in. In the 4 games that he started, Mike, he's shooting over 60% from the field and 60% on threes. So if you have a guy that can knock down threes with Anthony Davis and LeBron on your team, you're going to be really effective. Now, one thing about they've won 7 in a row at home. They've been great, so give J.J. Redick and that crew a lot of credit. Their 6-game winning streak has come against teams that are combined 27 and 60. Now, you feel better about them winning, but this kind of happens, the last few years with the Lakers. They get off to the good start, and eventually that schedule kind of catches up. But let's give Will Hardy a lot of credit, the coach of the Utah Jazz.
Yes.
He had a great quote last night after the game when he said everyone knew except for a few people who was going to take the shots. Unfortunately, the few people were the guys on our team. I thought that was a pretty good quote from Will Hardy.
Funny
pretty good
line it was. But give LeBron is right. He's just dead on about the other teams not getting it right with this kid in the draft.
Yeah.
And the Lakers
Nobody wants
did,
to draft
at least so
kids.
far. At least so far.
That's right.
Let's move to Deion. Coach Prime addressing the speculation that he could leave Colorado to coach the Cowboys. Sanders told reporters yesterday, Coach, a quote, "I'm happy where I am. I've got a kickstand down. I love it here. We're going to be here for a while. We ain't going nowhere. We're about to get comfortable." Close quote. Frank, what do you hear in Coach Prime's remarks?
All right, the one thing about the metaphor, Mike, you and I, we rode bikes when we were kids, and when you put the kickstand down, it takes about a split second to kick it back up and move on. So I think Deion was being smart here. There's no if this could potentially happen, what is the point of saying it now when your team could potentially be in the college football playoffs? So if he's going to be connected to maybe the Cowboys, maybe they draft his son. Michael Irvin has come out and said he's got a source. I'm going to try to, we don't guess sources in this business, but maybe it's an owner, maybe it's a coach of a team in Colorado that could be a source. So maybe something there is at play. Deion, sometimes he drives you nuts because all he wants to do is talk about himself. I actually think he handled this really well because you know what? There's no sense of talking about it now because you have a job to do. You're asking your players to do a job, so you have to do a job as well.
Frank, I'm not going to disagree with any of that. And he reserves the right to change his mind. I mean, we all do.
Of course.
Particularly when it comes to, we often do, when it comes to another job, another opportunity. Suppose his son is drafted by the Cowboys. He'd be crazy not to seriously consider going to do that if Jerry Jones puts in that call. And Michael Irvin is, look, you and I dealt a lot, and I dealt a lot with Deion and Michael Irvin because I was covering the NFL when those guys were in their prime, pun intended. And they're candid. You may not like what they say sometimes, but they are candid. And in my experience, they look at you and they tell you what they're thinking for real without much in the way of agenda. So I believe Michael Irvin has heard exactly what he's heard, but I believe Deion looks at this and says, you know what? There might be another college out there, Florida State alma mater, that hasn't really shown me enough love quite yet, and they might in the future. But Frank, Colorado is at least as good a situation, I think a better one to coach and contend nationally than Florida State. I don't think Deion has to leave and go anywhere to put a great product on the field in the day of NIL and transfer portal. He can stay there, leave the kickstand down, and do a whole lot of winning.
Don't you think he's going to have a lot of people bidding for him?
A few.
There's going to be other programs.
A few that make sense. Yeah. But Colorado, pretty attractive. Pretty attractive place to be right now if you're Coach Prime. Let's take a break. Coming up, is there anything worth getting upset about in the latest college football playoff rankings? We're going to ask Booger McFarland.
We'll also ask him why the Bengals defense has been so bad this season. Too bad for Deion that he won Sportsman of the Year last year, because he's actually a better candidate this year. He can't repeat.
I don't want to coach the Cowboys.
Pardon the interruption is presented by
ESPN, NFL, and college football analyst Booger McFarland. And we are starting today, Booger, with college football. We're going to start with the rankings. One of your SEC brethren, Paul Feinbaum, is upset about the rankings. Are you similarly offended by anything you saw in the rankings from last night?
Yeah, I am a little offended. I don't know if Paul and I are offended by the same thing. I think the first thing that continues to offend me is how they have Penn State ranked ahead of Indiana. They're in the same conference. Penn State has one loss. Indiana has no losses. When you look at their common opponents, Indiana has better control. That's the first thing. The second thing is if you're Tennessee, they got Tennessee ranked behind Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia. I get Georgia, but did we not see Tennessee beat Alabama? Did we not see that game? And so that quartet of SEC teams, those four teams with two losses, Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Georgia, to me, how the committee stacked those teams up was going to be the thing that was must-see TV. I thought they did a pretty good job. But if you're Tennessee, man, you got to feel really bad. You beat the number 17 at your house, and now they have you outside of the playoff. I think the people at Rocky Top didn't like the rankings last night.
All right, I'm not offended that you're offended, Booger, but let me ask you this. Massive game in the Big Ten this weekend. How do you see unbeaten and fifth-ranked Indiana matching up against number 2 Ohio State?
Well, I think Indiana's going to come in the game with a chip on their shoulder. And there's nothing like a motivated 18 to 22-year-old. That's number one. But once the emotion settles down, the biggest question mark in this game is from the Indiana defensive standpoint. Can they handle the Ohio State wide receivers? We know what they do, and they're led by superstar freshman Jeremiah Smith. If they can hold up on the back end, if they can not give up the big play, I think the Indiana offense can score, led by Curtis Rourke. This team has been backed in a corner all season long. They've been doubted. Nobody's given them a chance. Everybody said, little old Indiana. I think you're going to get the best version of Indiana. I love the culture up there. Kurt Signetti, he says, if you don't know what I do, if you don't know how I am, just Google me. Talk about confidence. I think they're going to come into the horseshoe with that same confidence. I think Indiana's going to put up a fight. I need to see them play against Ohio State, especially on the defensive side of the football.
All right, let's move to your other area of expertise, the NFL, and riddle me this. Joe Burrow, 27 touchdown passes, 4 picks, and yet the Bengals are 4-7 because their defense, let's face it, stinks. Why does their defense stink?
Well, sometimes it's about the players you don't have. Let's remember, Jesse Bates, he's now down in Atlanta. DJ Reader is in Detroit. He's no longer there. So when you lose good players and you don't replace them with adequate players, then your defense is going to take a couple of steps back. And I think overall, this defense is just not making the plays that we're normally seeing them make, and they're struggling on the back end. Now, can defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, who's one of the better coordinators in football, can he figure out a way schematically to create some turnovers? Because that seems to be the only thing that's going to help this defense. It would be a shame to waste a magical season like we're seeing from Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Obviously the best 1-2 punch as far as wide receiving quarterback in the National Football League, but they got to do something on the defensive side of the football. I think it starts up front. Their interior of their defense, the safety, those two positions have got to be a little bit better for Cincinnati because Joe Burrow is playing as good as anybody has ever played the position.
Well, Booger, let's wrap up with a question about a team that doesn't appear to have any obvious weaknesses, the Detroit Lions, who have just been rolling people. Do you see any place, Booger, where the Lions are vulnerable as we start this stretch run of the NFL season?
Well, it's the age-old thing. Can they stay healthy? We've already seen 2 of their defensive stalwarts go down. We saw Aiden Hutchinson, who was on his way to winning Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion, go down with a broken leg. Now, this past weekend, their star linebacker, Alex Anzalone, broke a forearm. So now you have two of the key guys in your front seven gone. And for a defense that's led by their front seven, that's not good. Other than that, Mike, they're loaded. They can beat you any way that you want to. They can run the football with Gibbs and Montgomery. They can throw the football, obviously, outside with Williams and St. Brown. Jared Goff is playing at an MVP level. The key will be, can they stay healthy on the defensive side of the football? We don't know if Hutchinson is going to come back, but it sounds like Anzalone, there's a chance he's going to come back at the start of the playoffs. If they can stay healthy, they're my favorite to win the Super Bowl, and you heard it first here on PTI.
Like that. Like that. Booger, thank you, man. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Booger.
Anytime, man. Y'all take it easy.
We're going to take one last break, but still to come. Will Joel Embiid and the Sixers finally win again tonight?
And AZ Fudd returns to the UConn lineup on a night when Gino Auriemma could set the all-time wins record.
Yeah, UConn loaded. With everybody back healthy, or at least most people back healthy, in the pitching triple crown of wins, ERA, and strikeouts this season, going 18-4 with a 2.39 and 228 Ks. And he went on to post almost the identical ERA across 3 postseason starts. The Tigers considered trading away the lefty at the deadline, but held on to him and will now be rewarded with having a Cy winner under team control for 2 more seasons.
You know, Mike, he's got a big arm and a big personality on the mound. He was a lot of fun to watch in the playoffs. You know, he's the first Triple Crown winner in a full season, 162-game season, since Kershaw and Verlander did it back in 2011. It's been a while.
We'll see if he keeps building on this. Great start to it with the first Cy Young. If he does it, he will. Happy anniversary, Nate Robinson. On this date 18 years ago, while playing for the Knickerbockers, the 5'9" Robinson straight up rejected the 7'6" Yao Ming. Elevating was one of Robinson's strong suits. He's the only 3-time champ of the dunk contest. He also played more than basketball. Robinson played 13 games, and people don't know this often, at corner as a freshman at the University of Washington before quitting the sport to focus on basketball. He later had a less than successful turn as a boxer, getting starched by Jake Paul. Robinson told the OG's podcast back in April that people should stop teasing him about that if Paul beat Mike Tyson, which he just did.
All right, Mike, that game against the Rockets, I was at that game. I covered it. Jeff Van Gundy is still saying that was a foul on Nate. I covered Nate, big-time athlete. You know, his dad, Jock Robinson, was the 1982 Rose Bowl MVP and the 85 Orange Bowl MVP. One other thing about Nate, in April, he also revealed he's really struggling health-wise. He's in need of a kidney transplant. So I want to send out my best to a guy I covered for a long time, Nate Robinson.
Send our best, absolutely, Frank. Happy trails to AZ Fudd's absence. UConn's star guard will make her season debut tonight against Fairleigh Dickinson. Fudd tore an ACL in practice after just 2 games last season. She rejoins a UConn lineup that also features her best friend, preseason All-America Paige Beckers. The two both chose UConn to play together, but have only done so in 17 games over 4 seasons because of those injuries. If second-ranked UConn wins tonight, Gino Auriemma will set the record for most coaching wins in women's basketball with 1,217.
You know, if Beckers and Fudd could stay healthy, UConn is going to make one of these runs. I'll tell you what, I was at the WNBA draft in April in Brooklyn, and both Paige Beckers and AZ Fudd were there. They were as big and as popular as any of the players that were going to get drafted. And remember, that's Angel Reese, that's Caitlin Clark. It's just another example of how big the women's game has become.
Can't wait to watch them, Frank. We're running out of show. Let's jump to the big finish. The Athletic reports the Jets owner, Woody Johnson, floated the idea of benching Aaron Rodgers after week 4. Your thoughts?
Yeah, they were going to bench him in September. Sure they were. That's why sometimes don't listen to the owner. Number 15, Marquette handed number 6, Purdue, its first regular season non-conference loss since 2020. Is that a big deal?
Not necessarily. Marquette's going to be good, but first season without Zach Edey for Purdue. Come on now. Baseball's managers of the year are Stephen Vogt of the Guardians, Pat Murphy of the Brewers. Okay by you?
I like those choices. Murphy, by the way, won 93 games. Russell Westbrook, first NBA player to notch 200 career triple-doubles. Significant?
Russell Westbrook is great. That's significant. An all-time great. Last one, Sixers and Grizzlies tonight. Is Philly going to win again and on the road?
There's a chance that Maxey could come back. He's going to be back Friday. And they've yet to win a game with Embiid. 0-3. We're out of time. Thanks for watching. I'm Frank Isola.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the podcast on the app or Apple Podcasts. And now,
PTI.
And Frank with tonight's PTI bonus topic.
okay, Frank, can Gino Auriemma and UConn dominate college basketball again?
You know what? I think they can, especially now in the post-Caitlin Clark era of women's college basketball. And there are two players. They have two stars. Paige Beckers, of course, who a lot of people think is going to be the #1 overall pick in the WNBA draft. And then AZ Fudd. And, you know, they're best friends. They've been teammates for 4 years. Mike, they've only played 17 games together over 4 years. So we're finally, hopefully, going to get a chance to see them. And I also, for Gino Auriemma, I think he has a chance to reestablish not only the program, but himself at the top of the college basketball pyramid. And you think about the job that he's done just in terms of building a program. I mean, he took that program from scratch and made it into an absolute powerhouse. And at a time, you know, you think about the great women's coaches, Vivian Stringer, Pat Summitt, Tara Vanderveer, who's just about to pass. It's interesting that Gino is still here. Look on the men's side, Mike, where you had, Mike Krzyzewski walked away, Roy Williams, Jay Wright. Gino is still doing it. And for so many years, did he come across as cocky, arrogant, but he kind of lent a loud voice to women's college basketball. And I think him and UConn are in a really good place this season.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see Fudd and Beckers. I can't wait to see their tag team. People forget because she was injured how great Paige Beckers was. As a freshman, she had 46% of her three-pointers. And then last year, coming back off a very difficult injury, 22, 5, and 4, shooting 53% and making nearly 42% of her threes. She's a great player. I mean, Caitlin Clark wasn't the only great college basketball player in the women's game. The interesting thing about this for Gino is the landscape has changed, Frank.
That's
and
right.
yes, Pat Summitt and Tara Vanderveer and Vivian Stringer had great teams. But now there's so many more great players. And you look and you see Juju Watkins. South Carolina's always loaded. Dawn Staley's teams are. LSU, Kim Mulkey's team's loaded again. You got UCLA, they're highly ranked with Kiki Rice. You got Notre Dame with Hidalgo. You have so much talent spread across the college basketball landscape in the women's game. I think it's a different challenge. It's a new challenge. I'm not going to say that Gino's not up to it, but it's going to be interesting. Is this parity? Is it more difficult to climb? You got to get past South Carolina. You got to get past Dawn Staley. She's the favorite now, not Gino. So exciting college basketball season on the women's side coming up.
Yeah, and Gino last year kind of hinted that maybe he was close to leaving. He just signed a big extension.
He ain't
I think
going
he's going to
anywhere.
be here for a while.
Going
That's
nowhere.
right. It's too much money. That's it. We're done. Back to you.